Hey, I think we are live. I think we're officially live. Welcome. I want to talk about this notion of identity crisis or identity shift in this third act phase. And if you're joining me, please say hello so I can see you. I'm kind of newer to this YouTube live thing, so I'm still learning my way around. But I wanted, this is something that's on my mind a lot, this notion of who am I now coming into this third act, right? I think we often hear about identity crisis, that type of thing. I think there was a psychologist by the name of Eric Fredrickson, maybe, I could have that wrong, that coined the term identity crisis. And I don't like the term crisis because to me it implies um, devastation or really bad things happening. And I actually think that this is a really great opportunity in this third act to figure out who we are now, and we get to build an identity from such a different place, right? From such a place of experience and wisdom and life lessons and all of those things that we're always talking about, right? I'm just double checking over here to make sure. All right, I'm just checking. All right, I am live. Okay, good. Awesome. Very good. We're coming into this phase uh, smart. We are coming into this phase like the smartest humans we've ever been in our lives. And I think that says a lot. So we don't have to start from scratch. We're not building necessarily a all new identity. We get to bring forward the parts of us, obviously, that we want to keep, but we also get to build from a place of experience. So I don't love the term identity crisis. I also don't love the term midlife crisis. Again, it implies devastation and just bad things. And I think it's an opportunity, to be perfectly honest. I think it's a great opportunity to really dig in and figure out who you want to be now and who you want to be going forward. So the who the heck am I am like who the heck am I now? I probably ponder this question on the daily. I probably ponder this question on the daily. I think it's and I would also say it's something that I hear women all of the time talking about, that we lose our identity. We're not sure who we are coming into this third act of life. And I think, maybe that's good news, bad news. We all kind of go through the same thing, but we also are not alone. Sorry, I'm messing with my hair here. And we're also not alone. Sorry, messing with my hair. I apologize. And I think why it's important to talk about this is we're stepping into a season, this next season of life, when we realize that whatever defined us for decades, whether it was a specific job, a family role, a community role, specific expectations, that type of thing, is completely shifting. And it can be very I always use the term disorienting. Like I feel very disoriented at times because I'm like, wait a minute, who am I now? I definitely felt the shift. I was laid off in 2017, and it took me probably a good year before I was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not calling the blah, blah, blah with blah, blah, blah. Like, give me the business card, right? It took a while for me to be like, oh, I'm an online entrepreneur now, et cetera. So I think that is interesting. But we definitely, we tend to tie our identity to our current role, whether it's a job, whether it is a parent, whether in a community. And when the dynamics of that shift, we're kind of left with like, well, what the heck do I do? What do I do now? Who am I now? Like where do I even go? Because we definitely feel like we need a way to describe ourselves, right? In a sense, I think. Thanks to whoever's joining me. I appreciate it. So why do we even lose our sense of self? Well, first of all, any life transition, any big life transition forces kind of a reevaluation of who we are. We learn new lessons. We kind of lose, I don't want to say our innocence, but a lot of times a big transition or a big loss kind of opens our eyes to things, and it just forces us to kind of look inside and question more what's going on. I remember one of my biggest transitions, probably in my mid 40s, right around perimenopause, which a term I didn't know at the time. I remember waking up often asking, is this all there is? Is this all I'm supposed to be doing? Like, it was very much like an identity. Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? So any big life transition, any type of, forced change, dynamic change, definitely shifts um, our identity, and kind of just like, you just start questioning, to be honest, you just start questioning things. And so you have that. I think we spent decades. So I always talk about the three acts, right? Act one is youth. Act two is adulting. That's the act when you're doing all of the responsible things, the job, the kids, the station wagon, the 2.5 kids, the picket fence, the bigger job, the bigger, all of the things, right? You're adulting, and you have a lot of responsibilities to those things, right? And suddenly when that shifts, when that's over, we're like, wait a minute, but what am I responsible to now? Who is relying on me now? What is my role now? And it can be very, I don't know, I keep coming back to the word disorienting, if that's the right word. Anybody else feel this? Anybody else like having this sense of, what the heck? Who am I now? Let me know. Let me know. I'd appreciate it. Then I think another big shift, especially for this third act, and I'm looking at notes here, by the way, if you look at me over, this helps keep me on track, is this idea that up until this point, up until this third act, we've had a role, we've had a script, right? Societal expectations, there is a script of what we're supposed to do in order to be, approved by society and approved by our community and all those things. Suddenly we come into this third act, and there isn't a script anymore. There isn't a script. So we're not sure what we're supposed to do. We have to write it for ourselves, right? We have to write the script for ourselves. And it's a little disarming sometimes, because there's nobody really telling us what we're supposed to do, right? And we tend to, I don't think we realize how much we live based on conditioning, but also by our supposed roles, right? And we have kind of these, milestones or markers that we're supposed to go by, right? And suddenly we don't have them anymore. So there's that. I also think it's, like I said, it's any big transition coming into this third act. It's a life transition, which always opens up self-reflection, right? It's just one of those times of life you start opening up for self-reflection. And I think it's, we have a lot of shifting beliefs. We have a lot of shifting priorities. I know I look back and think about like things I so desperately wanted and needed, and I was going to work towards, and all the things like in my 20s, 30s, 40s. And now I'm like, I don't even want it. I don't even want it. And so, but what's in its place? What do I want? That's the question. What do I want? Right? That's the big question, is we kind of realize that we're no longer interested in what we were before, but what are we interested in? Right? So that's challenging. I think it's really hard to give up a vision that you've had for yourself. I know that's been a huge transition for me. Seeing is that I'm widowed since seven years, coming on 7 years. Wow. And I remember for a long time, so I had 7 years, so I have a little bit of distance on it, but I remember it was incredibly hard to give up the vision of being a wife. And I was growing old with this person. I'd spent more than half my life with this person, and losing him was not in the cards. That wasn't part of the script at all. And giving up that vision that you just had so deeply held intrinsically is really hard, right? I can relate to the self-reflection. Yeah, I think coming into this next act, anytime there's big transition, is cause for questioning, right? And I also think I had put here one of my notes that it's it's a lot of giving up a vision, but we also tend to get in a place of healing or reflecting on past trauma or difficulties or challenge kind of thing. And anytime you've had major loss or trauma or just transition in your life, it's caused to be like, it makes you stop. It gives you pause, like, wait, what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. All this time I thought this, but it's not actually that. And so it really is time to self reflect and figure out who we are now. So I think giving up the vision. I also think the older we get, like the rose colored glasses come off and we see things much more as they are, not what we have been conditioned to see them as. I think one of the biggest things I've been going through is kind of the unlearning or the realization of how deeply conditioned each of us is. I mean, we're born into family units and, and communities and all that. We're so deeply conditioned. When you actually stop to think, like, wait a minute, is that who I am and what I want? Or is that what I was told to be and told what I want? And of course, we're not ditching every belief, but I do think it's a time to get very solid or more clear on what it is we do believe and what it is we do want and all of those things. And anytime you have that realization that doesn't match what used to be, it's hard. There's a grieving process, I think, where you're like, wait a minute, I kind of thought I was this, but now I don't even want it anymore. And then you get the whole notion of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like, wait a minute, I spent all this time thinking I wanted this, but now I don't. Like, was that time wasted? Or I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of self-reflection. So I totally get that. I think signs, let me know if you can relate to this, signs that you are in like a big identity shift. Restless. You're restless, but you're really unclear about what you actually want. I feel that every day. I feel like I'm itching to do something. I don't know what it is. I need to do something. I don't know what it is, right? So there's like this sense of restlessness. I think that's our brain's processing. At least for me, it feels like that's when my brain is processing things. Like you have the awareness, but you just don't have an answer yet on the other side. And by the way, I don't think there is a final answer, but more of a clarity, right? I think how do you describe yourself? Like I have a hard time describing myself now. I still have a very hard time describing myself as single because I'm not single. I'm widowed, but I am single. I have a very hard time with that. I have a hard time describing myself as solo aging, right? That was never a vision. I was going to be with my husband forever and somebody who's child-free by choice, now widowed, no kids. It's a very different picture. So I struggle still with how I describe myself. And I'm, not corporate anymore. I'm not the business card anymore. So there's that. So I think that's a clear sign as well. I think a big one is feeling like disconnected from what, things that that used to excite you or get you kind of worked up and everything. And all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm not real excited about that anymore. That's not, but there's nothing in its place yet. There's kind of this general, I don't know, malaise, if that's the right word. Just kind of like nothing seems exciting because you haven't found the new rhythm yet, to be honest. So I definitely feel that. And the big one, craving change, but you don't know what it is. And you're also, really afraid of the unknown. I'm very much in that place. I came into 2025 thinking, I got to get out and do something. I got to do something. I got to do something. I've got to do something. What is it? I don't know. So the way I tackled that was I came up with this plan for these micro adventures, what I call them, plan 6 micro adventures. And they are micro. They are one-off events, maybe a couple hours here and there, local, accessible, no long-term commitment, none of those things, just by way of trying different things, because I had this like incredible itch, like I've got to go do something, but I don't know what. And I don't want to do too much right? I don't want to do too much. So the micro adventures have proved incredibly helpful just to be doing something, right? So I've already had my first one. It was geocaching. I went geocaching, which was a ton of fun. And my next one coming up is archery. So we're going to see. And my only criteria for myself that I put on for these micro adventures was really something I've never done or someplace I've never been, and low commitment, low stakes. Like if I go and I hate the activity, it was a couple hours on a Saturday afternoon, right? No harm, no foul. If I go and enjoy it, great. It was great. But I think it's more for me, just this idea of getting into action that has been incredibly helpful. So that's one way I'm kind of combating this whole, I know I need something more, but I don't know what it is. And then I'm also terrified to make the wrong move. So that was kind of the whole plan for that. If you're interested in that, I have like a whole micro adventure planner that I documented with resources, where to find them all. It's in the description below. But that's one of the ways I really am tackling that, because it's like I don't know what I want to do, so I'm just going to start trying stuff. I'm just going to start trying stuff and see what sticks. And so that's been a way to do that. So how do we figure out who we are now? And I guess I want to preface it by saying, I don't think we ever figure out who we are. I think we are figuring out who we are. And I think we get stuck in this like not crossroads. We kind of get stuck in a rut. We kind of get this analysis paralysis, right? So I think one big way to start, obviously, is just start inventorying. What is it you love to do? What did you love to do? What do you aspire to do? I have inside my Third Act Collective, my online membership community, I have this whole module called the Big Book of You. That's like inventories for seven different areas of your life to figure out, just to kind of get in black and white, like, who am I? Who am I? And what am I about? I think it's really easy to forget a lot of parts of ourselves, maybe simply something we've put on a back burner for a long time and have just kind of forgotten about, just to kind of get in black and white. So these inventories, I think, are super helpful. I think kind of listing out what you're naturally good at, or what do you do that you lose track of time for, or that you look forward to. So kind of going back to my micro adventures, one of the things I know about myself is I rebel against commitment. So I knew that anything activity that I needed to plan, I didn't want to have it on my calendar, put it on my calendar, and then immediately regret it. So I know that about myself. So I know low commitment, low stakes, right? So I know I can lose time. I can lose track of time often in things that are typically alone and isolated. Like it's really easy for me to isolate. So I am working hard to not do that. But figure out where it is you can lose track of time. Where is it? Oh, you're the same way, right? Yeah. Commitment averse, and yeah. And I don't want to get something on my calendar and immediately be like, oh gosh, why did I say that? Why did I sign up for that? Anyhow, we know how that is. But we do need to start looking at, where is it you do lose track of time. I think there's huge clues in that. So like the Big Book of You that I have inside my membership community is like 7 different areas of your life. I even dig into inventory your surroundings, like what brings you joy around you. Like obviously me, I love a lot of color, right? Color and, that kind of thing. Commitment equates to boring to you. That's interesting. See, commitment to me relates to feeling trapped and out of control, which I'm sure is more of a deep-seated trust issue. I should chat with my therapist about, but I can see that. Yeah, commitment is, I can see that. Yeah, because it's all planned and like there's no element of surprise at all, right? But so I think sitting down and, figuring out, what does light you up? Where do you lose time? And what what are you just naturally good at? Like we're all naturally good at things, right? And how do you get more of that into your life? Because I think what happens is we've spent so much of our adult life doing the crap we're supposed to do and that we have to do, and we have forgotten about a lot of the things that we love to do. And I think kind of getting that to the surface again is just a good clue about who you are now. Like, are you a creative that hasn't been able to be creative in a long time, or what's been on the back burner? And like I mentioned quickly, like what do you surround yourself with? I think our environment, I think, holds a lot of clues to who we are now. And I think sometimes what happens is we don't see it anymore. So like say in your home, like maybe you have that like art or something that you just love, you don't see it anymore because it's just been hanging there, right? You don't see it anymore. I think it's important to see it again, like deliberately see it again, and work with your inventory and get it in black and white to remind yourself of all these things. Micro adventures are good. The inventories are good. If you're interested in those, they're inside my Third Act Collective membership. I think there's a link below. I think the interesting thing is coming up. So once you get these inventories or like whatever list you make, what do you do with it? I think what's interesting is this idea of mashing up different interests and skills to see what you can come up with that's new and unique. That might be a new thing to introduce into your life. I know I definitely do it with my business students. I have like what I call mashup exercises, where you mash up different interests and skills to figure out how that could become a digital business, a digital product idea. I think we can do it in our life as well. There's so many opportunities now. I think another thing we have to do that's really hard but imperative is we have to open our eyes to new possibilities. I think we come into this third act oftentimes with blinders on. We're in a bubble. Like this is who we are. And we need to start opening our eyes to what's around the corner, what's over there, what's new. The micro adventures definitely help with that, but we just need to train our brain generally to do this, because I think interesting things happen outside of our bubble. But if you don't let yourself even try them, it's not going to come into your life at all. And I think by finding things that are interesting or curious to us is a clue about who we are. Who are we really? Who are we? Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to spend your time? And a lot of times we just don't see other possibilities, which obviously is a detriment. So we need to be able to see other possibilities in our life. And that requires taking the blinders off. And it requires trying some things that maybe you haven't considered trying before, just by way of maybe validating who you are. So I could imagine, like, I know that, like, I'm not outdoorsy. I'm not an outdoorsy person. I don't anticipate becoming some great hiker ever. But I went like geocaching. And to me, that was like the biggest, outdoor adventure. It was at a local park 10 minutes away. So we're not talking like the wilderness here or anything. But it was interesting to see myself in that situation. Like, yeah, nope, I'm not like a real outdoorsy person, but that was like a good amount of outdoors at a local park. So it just kind of revalidates who you are. It also, getting involved in things also, like commitment wise, like when I said earlier, I do not like commitment. I feel trapped. I need short bursts of connection with people. I don't need 100 best friends. I do not need 100 best friends. I need connection of some kind, community of some kind. I don't need 100 best friends. In fact, I repel against that. I'm not super social, and I know that about myself. So that's one thing I do know about myself, and I have revalidated that. I am much more of an introvert and a loner. I'm very much a loner. I'm trying to be more connected, but it's also, I think, another thing in this whole coming into this third act, who am I now, is also coming to terms with some things about ourselves that we haven't accepted yet. I've talked a lot about this notion of I've stopped asking why a lot of times. So, for example, I hate the word passion. Like, what's your passion? I don't have a passion. I have a bazillion passions, right? I have a bazillion interests. I don't have a passion. And I feel like that word is very heavy. So when I say I've stopped questioning why, like I would look at other people and be like, why do they have like this burning passion commitment to art or running or what? Like, I don't have that. And I'm like, you know what, Colleen, it doesn't matter. You're multi-curious. Just go with it, accept it. And I think some of uncovering about who we are now is kind of letting go of self-shaming because we're not a certain way that society says we're supposed to be. And just accept it. Like, that's me. I'm not devoted to one thing over and over. I'm devoted to many things, and that's who I am. And I'm going to go with that. I'm not going to fight it anymore. Right. So there's that. So I think kind of in wrapping up, I think what's really interesting is take the time, like give yourself the space to do the self-reflection, and don't beat yourself up that you don't have like an absolute who am I now, because I think it's like an ongoing process for one. I think there's that. I think give yourself permission to go explore things that maybe you wouldn't have even looked at before, because you just don't know. Maybe it just validates you actually don't like that thing. Maybe it opens up something new. You know, try the micro adventures, try some low commitment thing just to see. If anything, getting into action, I think, is always affirming for ourselves and our mental health, for one. And build social connections in a way that makes sense for you. Like I said, I don't need a whole bunch of friends. I don't. And I often talk about like where I live. I live in this really incredible like hotel style apartment building that I didn't realize it at the time, but it is like ideal. There's a lobby. It's very social. There's tables and fireplaces and TVs, and there's always something going on. You can go be social if you want, and then you can just leave and go home. And that's like the ideal social setup for me. So I know that about myself. So put yourself in situations that work for you socially as well. Because if I get in a situation where I feel trapped, like a dinner party that's going on till midnight, oh, no. And so I think part of realizing who we are now is also accepting who we are without questioning it. Work with what you have, right? Work with what you have and understand that it's normal. This transition, it's huge. It is huge. It is going to take a long time to figure out who we are. I think another important thing to keep in mind is, and this is something I've learned a lot in the last 7 years, in fact, I had this revelation just about a month ago. I kept saying things like, I'm starting over. I'm starting a whole new life. I'm starting over. When the reality was I had started over. It happens in very small, nuanced ways that we don't necessarily see it. And I think the whole identity shift is the same. There's not one aha moment that suddenly you know who you are now. I think it happens in really tiny, nuanced ways that we don't necessarily see on the day to day. And eventually you're like, wait a minute. No, okay, I am whatever I am now. And so I think maybe training our brain to look at the more nuanced things and allowing yourself to have like tiny wins, tiny moments of like, oh yeah, okay, that's good, is important too, because I think we're all kind of conditioned for the big moment. Now I know now, and it doesn't happen. It's like these little micro actions and activities that eventually add up to something you see and feel. And then one day you'll be like, oh, wait a minute, looking back, like you are, this is who I am now. But it happened really gradually. And so I think we need to give ourselves kind of space for that. So that's what I want to know. That's what I wanted to say. that's what I wanted to say about this identity shift. It's on my mind a lot. Um, I'm struggling with letting go of who others want me to be. Yes. Yes. I think that's a big one. I think coming into this third act is definitely a phase of life when we A, stop people pleasing, and B, stop being who other people want us to be because it serves them, right? This is the time to get really real with yourself and say, this is my turn now. This is the third act, right? This is the time when you need to become you fully. Like our third act is a long one, but it's also the final one. So I think it's the time to really be authentic to you. Like, and I mean, that sounds kitschy. Everybody's authentic, but figure out who you really are and how you want to be, and be that. It's not anybody else's business to say who you need to be. That's them wanting you to serve them in some capacity, whatever it is. And I understand family dynamics, all those things are big, but you are the most important person in your life, period. And nobody else can ever have your best interest at heart more than you. And so when we do change or shift, there's always resistance from other people because you're not serving them in the same way you used to. But the option is to keep doing what they want you to do, which is basically sacrificing yourself because you want to be different. And if you keep doing this way for them, you're prioritizing them over you. And I think that's the part that starts to itch at us in this third act. Like, wait a minute, it's my turn now. I've been playing this role my whole life. I've been doing what I was supposed to do my whole life. Now it's my turn. And you'll get resistance. You will get resistance, but you matter too, right? You matter too. You're the most important individual in your life. And oftentimes, I think one challenge, at least I have faced, is you play the role, you do the thing, you are the person that you're expected to be, and it's not necessarily reciprocated. And we start to resent that. Maybe not even start, we do resent it. And I think that's a good sign to start standing on your, on your ground, saying, this is who I am, this is what I want to be. And I'm sorry if it's not making you happy. It's making me happy, right? Easier said than done, I know. Easier said than done, I know. But I think it's a big one. I do think coming into this third act, it's a lot of things. We start to realize our own mortality, all of those things. You realize this isn't a dress rehearsal. And so there's more, I don't want to say pressure to get our shit together, but there is kind of more pressure to finally do what we want to do and be who we want to be. But it's complicated, of course, but you absolutely deserve to be who it is you want to be, in my opinion. So there's that. So with that, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for letting me, talk this out loud, because it's something I'm thinking about a lot every day, and really contemplating what to do, and sharing. Like, these micro adventures have been very helpful to me, just to get in action doing something, and just kind of giving me an opportunity to be more self-reflective and try some things out of the box that I wouldn't have before. And so far, I think that's a good place. That's a good place for me to kind of to start exploring, who is it I want to be now? Who am I now? How do I want to live? Where do I want to live? All of these things, big life questions. But again, it's happening in really tiny, little nuanced ways. But the decision has to be like, I want to be intentional about this. I want to be aware that I'm figuring this out, and that you keep conscious of it and work on it. So I hope this was helpful. And also, thank you for coming. I am new to this YouTube live, so I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring out all the whistles and bells and equipment and all sorts of things. So I appreciate it. I'm going to do more of these. And if you're interested, by the way, I almost forgot, I have a Substack called Third Act Field Notes. There's a link in the description here where I'm talking about this. I'm calling it From the Front Lines of Reinvention and Starting Over After 50. And that's really what it is. It's really writing a new script because there isn't a script, right? We're amongst the first generations that get to live this really, long time and healthy. We have like this whole next life, and we're not prepared for it because it hasn't been before. We're the ones, figuring this out. So I'd love for you to join me on my Substack. Again, there's a link down there called Third Act Field Notes, and I will be back here again. That I'm gonna be on YouTube talking about all of these things as I'm going through them too. And I feel like we put a hive mind together. We can figure it out. So. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm always happy to share my story and always love hearing other people's stories too. I think that's how we learn and grow and move forward. So, but thanks for joining me today, and I will see you again very soon. I don't have regularly scheduled YouTube lives yet, but I definitely will. So like and follow the channel, play all the things you're supposed to do. And I will see you here and hopefully in Substack too. All right. Cheers.